What's up, fourth graders? This is a video of Unit 3, Lessons 7 and 8. So if you have your Grade 4 Unit 3 Illustrative Mathematics Workbook, open up to pages 32 through 38. And in this video, we're going to be discussing fractions as sums, aka addition. So stick around. So we're going to start in our workbook on page 33. On page 33, this is where they're talking about barley soup, and you can see up in the top right-hand corner, they've got a quarter cup and a third cup. At the beginning on number 1, where it says Lynn has only one measuring cup that measures 1 quarter cup, show how Lynn could use the cup to measure the right amount of each ingredient. So for the barley is 3/4 of a cup. That's the value of how much barley you need for this recipe. And so one way we could notate this, which is what they're saying, is 1/4 scoop plus one. How many 1/4 scoops are we going to need to get the amount of barley we need? Which is going to be 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. This is an expression of unit fractions. And we could do that for celery, carrots, onion broth. For that, we have 5/4 for the celery. How many unit fractions of fourths would we need to make 5/4? Which, if you think about your cup, this is kind of how I drew it on the board that day. 1/4 cup. How many scoops of this do I need? Kind of looks like a guitar, doesn't it? How many of these scoops do I need? So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. That's kind of how I showed it in class. So for the 5/4, how many unit fractions do we need? We need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing, and you would go through the same thing for carrots and onions and vegetable broth, right? Now, what happens if Lynn gets that other cup in that top picture, the 3/4 cup? Now we're talking about making life a little bit quicker. So we still have 3/4 cup of broccoli, but if we have a 3/4 cup, then we are going to just have 3/4 like this. What if we have a 5/4 cup? Now we're in trouble. We are going to use the 3/4, and then are we going to be able to use another 3/4? Well, if we did that, that would take us to 6/4. So we're going to break that 1/4 cup back out again, and we're going to do 3/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. That's going to get us our 5/4. This is how lesson 7 tells us to add fractions using regular fractions, but also using these unit fractions. On page number 34, it shows us one fraction that it wants us to start to think about, and it has lines on here. So 9/5, I'm just going to show you this one, blank plus blank plus blank plus blank. So it has 5 blanks. Like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kinds of fractions could we do? Well, we could do 2/5 plus 2/5, that would be 4, plus 3/5. So now we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 1/5 plus 1/5. Any variety of fractions can be added as long as we hold this denominator to be the same. And we've been talking about that again and again. I encourage you to practice on these questions on page 32, 33, and 34 in lesson 7 to add sums in fifths and thirds on page 34, using the barley soup on page 33, fractions as sums with regular fractions as well as unit fractions. All right, here we are in lesson 8. We're on pages 35, 36, 37, and 38 in your workbook. This whole lesson is talking about number lines. And so we have a number line that looks like this. We're talking about jumps on a number line. So we have sixes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The number 1 here. And it's asking us for how to use jumps to make 8, 6. That's the target. That's the sum that we're looking for. So this here's our 0. So we're going to make a jump and see what that jump would be if our so we're wanting our target to be 8, 6. So what kind of jumps can I make? And so in the middle of page 36, our book does this. 1, 2. And so these jumps are the two numbers that you're adding. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6 sixths because the 1 tells, and we have the 1 right here, so that shows us that the denominator is going to be 6. And this here is, I'll write it up here because I'm kind of out of room, 2 sixths, which is going to get us 8 sixths. This is the diagram that we're looking at, as you can see, all throughout pages 36, 37, and 38. The equation is going to look something like this. 6 sixths plus 2 sixths equals 8 sixths. And so on page 36, they're giving you the numbers to use, the target to hit. Then on page 37, they kind of switch it up a little bit. And they ask you to draw the number line based on what they have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here's 1. If we wanted to write 1 as a fraction, and this is called a unit fraction, this space right here, this is 1/8. How do we know that it's eighths? Because the denominator is the total amount of equal parts in the whole. We talk about that in my class all the time. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces in the whole. Here's your whole 1. So we could say this would be 8 eighths. I had a student today very plainly say, if the top number and the bottom number are the same, that's 1 whole, and that's absolutely correct. So on page number 37, they give us 5 eighths plus 2 eighths, and you can probably very clearly see what the answer to that is going to be, but I just want to use this number line to make sure that we know what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to start at the 0, and we're going to jump to the 5. 5 eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what? How many more? 2. 1, 2. So here's my 5 eighths. Here's my 2 eighths. And we've landed here. We're 1 in front of the whole. So that's going to give us 7 eighths. 7 eighths. We're never changing the size of the piece, so keep that in mind. We're adding how many pieces we have, 5 plus 2. And finally, I want to talk about the bottom of page 37. I'm going to read it to you real quick. It says, Priya says the sum of 1 2/5 and 4/5 is 1 6/5. Kiran says the sum is 11/5. Tyler says it is 2 1/5. Do you agree with any of them? Explain or show your reasoning. Use one or more number lines if you find them helpful. And I want to talk about this because this is a big part of our fraction experience right now. 1 2/5 and 4/5 is 1 6/5. So that's the sum. So here's the argument. 1 2/5 plus 4/5 equals 1 6/5, or 11/5, or 2 1/5. This is what I want to talk to you about here for sure. So here's what we need to know. We need to be able to see very clearly that this 1 right here, if we were to turn that 1 into a whole number fraction, that 1 is 5/5. I told my students today, this denominator right here is bossy. He tells you what to do. This denominator tells you what happens to that whole number right there. So that's 5/5. And then we have 2/5 here, plus 2/5, plus 4/5. So if we add all these things up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, here we have 11/5. So we could put a check right there on 11/5, right? If we leave the whole number the way it is, let me leave that there, I think. If we leave that whole number the way it is, and we say 1 2/5 plus 4/5 equals 1 6/5. We still have a whole number, and we've combined the 4/5 and the 2/5 to get 6/5. So we would have the correct answer here as well. Now let's talk about 2 1/5. 1 2/5 plus 4/5 equals, let's just put 1 6/5. Could we take this 1 6/5? Do we have enough fifths in here to turn that into another whole? We would have 1 5/5 plus 1/5. That's 2 1/5, which is what we have right here. One of the key elements to these lessons moving forward is for students to be able to take this whole number, decompose it into a fraction, 5/5, whether they do that on paper, whether they do that in their mind, knowing that this denominator tells you the pieces of the whole. This denominator tells you what size those pieces are, and that tells you how to make your whole number. This concludes our wrap-up of lessons 7 and 8 in our Unit 3 workbook. We've been talking about addition of fractions, keeping that denominator the same because that bossy little denominator tells us what to do, and being able to change a whole number from a 1 to a 5/5 or whatever the denominator is. If you have questions, let me know, and I will catch you later.